I like to get to the real nitty-gritty of people. You know me. I've known Patti for a while now, and I don't play any punches in the questions sometimes, in the nicest sense of the word. But there's a few things there that really struck me coming out the clips that I want to kind of explore with you. The first thing really is, you said you like singing sad songs, and
Yes.
I have to say, you could almost see the tears in your eyes, and you look so shy in some of those early clips that you look like you wouldn't say boo to a goose. And yet now, I probably couldn't shut you up, I have to say.
No, you couldn't.
Well, were you genuinely a rabbit in the headlights when you started all those years ago, or was that something more for the cameras?
No, actually, it was, I had just survived the Biafra War. So I just survived a genocide. And even though that made me quite worldly in a sense, I understood more about human nature. But it also made me aware of how vulnerable we are. Because, you know, when you get to see so many dead bodies and, you know, help bury a few, it's sort of, there is an innocence of the fact that you are quite insignificant in the scheme of the universe. And so that's why I love singing sad songs at the time, as I said, because I don't cry easily, but I can cry when I'm singing. And that's why, you know, I love singing sad songs.
Now, it's interesting because that was what I was going to come to probably sooner rather than later.
Can I just stop you for a minute?
Yeah, of course I can. Go on.
Guys, I just, 45 years, I've been married to this magnificent man here, my husband.
Go on, Stephen. Stand. Let's see you are. This is Stephen, our husband.
The poor guys had to put up with me for 45 years.
That's not what he said to me, I have to say, but never. He seems pretty pleased about it, I have to say. No, I mean.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So it's all good. It's all good. Because that's partly what I'm going to come on to, really, where you find your inner strength from. Because David Amos, who we've just seen there at the very end of the clips,
Yeah.
I mean, a man who I know was a deeply committed, I think, Catholic like you are as well.
Incredible man.
But I mean, you touched upon it right at the very start there. You have seen some real tragedies in your life, haven't you, because of your childhood?
Yes.
And I mean, where do you get your faith from after the things you've been through, the things you've endured?
You know, the funny thing is, there's so much darkness in the human race, but there's so much light in the human race. You know, God finds good, light, even during a genocide. I was blessed to be able to see the light as well as the dark. And I think, come on, there's something greater than us. We didn't explode into, I'm sure. I like to think that when I leave this earth, that my Lord Jesus will be right there to say, welcome, my child.
Yeah.
That's what I like to believe.
Yeah.
And so that is my
Absolutely.
belief. Because I think in life, you get what you actually, we build our own lives. I believe that. What you believe happens. Okay? I say to my children, say it into the universe.
Yeah.
And the universe will take over.
Yeah.
But what you believe happens.
It's interesting because I mean I'm a Christian as you know as well, and I asked the kind of father one day this question really about why tragedy came along when, as you said, there was such joy in the world as well, and he said, well, you don't necessarily blame God for all the tragedy. There is the devil there is the devil in the world as well, causing chaos along the way.
Absolutely.
And I think, and then we talked quite interesting about kind of self-determination and the fact that we often, God won't always answer our prayers when we ask for our prayers, because sometimes we ask for the wrong things, and He knows what's the right thing to ask for. But we don't know what the right thing we're asking for.
So when you ask, you just say, I ask a lot. Heaven knows I nag a lot. Because
that's what Stephen said as well, actually, that you nag a lot, but that's a different matter entirely, But.
Well, God has so many children. He has billions of them, and He has to hear Patti. So I've selected Friday. Many years ago, I can't remember, as far as even before this, I decided that I was going to fast every Friday. And I decided if I fast every Friday, deprive myself of food, He has to hear me. Among the ding, okay? And then in the end, He would say to the angels, Oh, please give her whatever she wants. I've got too many children.
So how did how did Patti Boulaye end up in London, appearing on the stage when she started in Nigeria, as you said, in the middle of a war zone, really?
Oh my word. Okay, that's quite a good story because I went to a convent school and I had a favorite nun called Sister Catherine. It was the Order of the Holy Child of Jesus in Lagos. And I decided that I was going to be a nun. But it wasn't because I was pious or had a calling, but because I had incredible siblings. I mean, they were aeronautic engineer, a pilot, a physicist, an industrial chemist, a doctor, you name it, my siblings. And then me. I was seventh of 9 children. And so I just thought, Dad said I have to be a lawyer because I was the only one that didn't study science. So I decided, I think I'll go into the convent. And then he can't have a say about my life. And the convent got me to England because I had to decide whether or not I wanted to take my vows. And Dad sent me to England to decide. And I accidentally mistook Madame Tussauds. You see, I was going to Madame Tussauds, and I thought that's where I was going, but I was going to Shaftesbury Theatre. There was an audition for a show called Hair. And Shaftesbury Theatre looked like Madame Tussauds. It's in the corner. I mean, come on, I've just come from Africa, so every building in London looked the same. All the theatres had the same. But this one was particularly, Madame Tussauds, I don't know if you remember, had a head of hair, a rainbow-colored head of hair. That was okay. And Hair had a rainbow-colored head of hair. I mean, never mind that one was Afro and the other wasn't, but hey, it was rainbow. So I joined the queue. It was about 2 hours long, and I ended up at the stage door. And I said to the stage door man called Jim, I said, how much is it to get in? And he said, you don't pay, this is an audition. Well, of course, I've had it in my head to get in, pay and get in. You don't queue, not pay. So I said, well, how much is the audition? So he said, you don't pay, honey, you sing. I thought, wow, okay, this is really cheap stuff, You can get about in London, you just have to sing. And so I got into the theater, and everybody was singing the same songs. When the moon is in the 7th house, Aquarius. They were singing this. And I thought, gosh, don't they dress very strangely? Everybody was a hippie. Except me. I was dressed like I was going to a bank, for a job. And I just thought, they dress differently. And they sing the same song. They only know one song, this song, okay? And when it came to my turn, I cut a long story short. I sang The Sound of Music. I had seen it so many times in the convent. The hills are alive with the sound of music. Yeah. I sang it in my best Von Trapp voice and got the job.
Now, the amazing thing is that people might think that's just a showbiz story that kind of gets passed around the autobiographies of people, but I have a nagging suspicion it's probably true of you, because the one thing I do love about you is that you're not actually at all showbizy at all, really, are you? That's really the act side of you. You're actually very down to earth.
Yeah, I'm in show business.
You're a mum, aren't you, really, first and foremost?
Yeah, I'm in show business. I'm not part of show business.
Yeah. But it's very interesting. I mean, we saw there, obviously, your new faces, where you made history by achieving full marks for everything. But, what comes through all those early clips there is very much people talking about your looks, and then your talent almost after that. And
it's the Holy Spirit.
Well, it was 70s television, I would say. Yeah. I mean, surely breaking into TV, that was not untypical.
That was all live. It's crazy. I mean, now you can stop and go, ooh, I made a mistake. Not then. The orchestra cost a fortune. You were on, you make mistake, you continue.
Yeah, but I mean, my wider point is that I mean, did you feel, not supposed to theatre work, but in the TV work certainly, that you were being very much judged on your looks as opposed to your voice at the start?
No, didn't bother me. Things like that don't bother me.
Okay, that's interesting, but because certainly to some people like Tony Blackburn, they, and then the kind of corny jokes they cut along the way, as it were, because you read so much about, and in fact, having been a TV historian all my life, you read so much about the TV industry in the 70s,
Yes.
and the 80s to a certain extent as well, and the fact that black people particularly found it hard to break into
It was difficult.
the TV industry.
Oh, gosh.
How much prejudice did you really come up against? Any? None?
A lot, but it didn't, we human beings have a fear of the unknown. Okay? So I was, when I was in hair, I began to learn about show business because I knew nothing whatsoever about show business. I decided that I was going to be, when you go into supermarket and you see tins of baked beans, but one always stands out. So I decided I was going to be Heinz baked beans, okay? Because that was the one that stood out. And I thought, amongst all the black faces, what is it that, because you have to know what your industry is. And I thought, if E.T. and Mickey Mouse can make money and be famous, come on, I can too. It doesn't matter what color you are. It's down to whether you can make them money. It's down to, if you can't make them the money, then you're wasting their time and they don't want to know. And I found that in those days, actually, black people had a bad reputation for timekeeping. And I used to just turn up to be different. I used to turn up at least 30 minutes to an hour before I was due anywhere, There's actually a sad story about my journey. There is a very sad story about turning up early. Can I tell it?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah.
It's in the book. There's so many stories in the book you won't believe. It's very on show business anyway. But what happened was, even in the stage magazine, it would say whites only audition. My father, meanwhile, had disowned me as being with vagabonds and strolling minstrels. And I had to make a career of this singing thing. So I decided, well, if nobody's going to see me, how are they going to know I exist? And I started going to whites only audition.
Good for you.
That was,
Absolutely.
It was a tough thing to do. I'll give you an example of one. 10 up, 9 o'clock, and it's because I used to fast every Friday, I never used to eat breakfast. So I didn't train my stomach to be hungry. And 10 up, 9 o'clock, audition starts 9:30, and this man at the stage door would look at me, and really, those days they were not politically correct. I would sit down, he'd just let me in, I'll sit down with everyone. I'm telling you, 5:30 in the evening, everyone has been auditioned and gone, and I'm still there. Then he comes and goes, okay, everyone, so stay. The rest of you, thank you very much. And I just put up my hand. At this point, I have been humiliated. I'm so upset because people would say things like, didn't she look in the mirror? Maybe she doesn't realize she's black. Nasty, nasty comments. The tears will be right up to here. I'm not able to move because I think if I move, I'll probably just collapse or something. And I put on my hand, I said, I'm sorry. He says, what? I said, I've been here since 9 o'clock. He says, but didn't you read it was whites only? And I would lie. I said, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. And he will huff up and go up. I hear him say to the director, there's one more to audition. The director says, no, audition started 9:30. She can't audition. And he said, well, she's been here since 9 o'clock. The director said, what do you mean she's been here since 9 o'clock? He said, well, she's black. He said, I don't care if she's pink, white, yellow, or red. Get her in here to audition. Okay? So I went in there. I have to tell you, my audition piece at that point was What a Wonderful World.
Some great satire there.
Absolutely. And I went in. I sang What a Wonderful World. I don't know if I sang it well or whatever, but the tears were just there. So it must have been very emotional. When I stopped, the director just completely was silent. Everyone was silent. The director came up and I thought, oh no, don't be kind, don't be kind. Of course, comes, put his arm around me. Whoa! The tears. Everything came out, the war, name it.
Did you get the job? That's the important part.
I did.
Good. There you are. So it was well worth it. It was well worth it. Okay.
I did this a few times, but I got the
Yeah,
first
yeah. You pushed your way in, which is exactly
Push your
what
way in.
happened.
Yeah.
Kathy, I interviewed Kathy Tyson about 3 weeks ago, and she was saying that she was kind of, the directors would say to her, you know, when she auditioned for roles like in Mona Lisa or whatever, they were looking for a black prostitute, and they would say to her, you know, you're the lucky one because you're the black person we've chosen. There are other black people we've rejected. And she said, I felt like I was playing a bit of a game,
Yeah.
agreeing with the directors, like I was the kind of favoured black person. Now, 30 years later, she regrets that. She feels that she was almost betraying her own colour by kind of playing those white people's games. And I mean, that's really interesting you saying that, because it was a world that was structured in such a different way now. We could almost not imagine it 30 years later. Just how
Absolutely.
different the world of TV was.
I mean, one of the biggest movies I was offered was with Helen Mirren. But in those days, it was, it was called Hussy. And I'll tell you everything.
Yeah.
My character, yes, she was a Soho singer, but a prostitute. I mean, my God, in the script, she was going to sleep with about 10, 12 men. And I said, sorry. They said, you're going to turn down the money. I said, listen, darling, the money I will spend in probably 2 years, that film will stay forever. I've got children, I've got parents in Africa. That film will kill them. I said, sorry, the money, you couldn't. Even if you offered me 50 million, no.
Good for you.
And then I had the cheek to say, I'll take very little money. Can I do the singing? Somebody else can just split the character. And they said yes. I'll never forget that. They said yes. Unbelievable.
Now, one of the interesting things about Patti Boulaye, the person, is that, I mean, obviously there's a lot of singing in those early clips we showed there, but then you developed as an actress, and you acted, and you became quite a personality doing things like blankety blank as well. So your career diversified into all sorts of other showbiz areas out of the singing, didn't it?
Come on, you're talking to a woman who turned up for a whites only audition. How more diversified can you be?
Yeah.
No, I really did want to know everything, because we didn't have that tradition in Africa, in Nigeria, when I was growing up. Well, I wasn't grown up enough to know that tradition. And so I wanted to learn everything. What happens when you direct? What happens when you produce? What happens to the stage door man? What makes you... And I realized, actually, you don't just become a star. Everything builds up to you. When I was playing Carmen in the West End, I realized that it starts the stage door man, even the ushers, you know, I mean, all of them build up to this great performance on stage when the audience are waiting.
You do have tremendous business acumen, and you have built a fantastic career, haven't you? I mean, outside television and films as well, in academia. And in charity fundraising, and in all sorts of other areas as well. I mean, just to expand a little onto that. I mean, how on earth does someone who starts off on New Faces end up, you know, lecturing at a university?
Well, yeah, I'm a visiting teaching fellow, and they call me a visiting scholar. It started when I went to, about 10 years ago, I was invited. I have an academy called BFI Academy, which teaches life's protocol to people of all ages. I have private clients. And so I was asked to come and give a workshop at Middlesex University at one of their conferences. And I turned up, and of course, unfortunately for this poor man from the BBC, who is some professor or the other but used to serve, he decided he was going to facilitate my workshop because I'm a singer, so I wouldn't know what I was doing. Didn't want me to embarrass myself. So he turned up and I let him. And when he finished, and he introduced some other person, eating into my 30 minutes of presentation. So when he finished and sat down, I just laid into him. I gave him everything I have done, my life history, everything, everyone in the room. He was disappearing with each sentence. And I just, you know, and when I finished, he said, "Ooh, we're duly chastised," he said. I thought, that's okay. Left the workshop, went into the main area for the conference, and the next thing I know, this professor comes running to me. "Would you be on the panelist, on the panel, panel of judges?" I said, "No, I know nothing about HR." She said, "Oh, I think you'll be okay."
Yeah,
She
absolutely.
said, "It's gone round the university what you've done to Professor." And I went, "Wow." She said, "Oh, this place, news travels."
Yeah.
So I got on the panel, and there were 6 of us. Well, there were 5 of them, and I made the 6th one. They asked a question. It's about HR. The first answer, abbreviation, abbreviations, abbreviation. And I'm thinking, oh dear, I'm so dead. What am I doing here? They asked the next person, the same abbreviation. I said, "Okay, guys, wait. I said to the facilitator, "I'm so sorry." I said, "There's an idiot sitting here. Do you think you could make it idiot proof? Just break down those abbreviations." They had used it so many times, none of them could break it down. I mean,
That's academia for you.
they had used it so many times, none of them could break it down. So as it turned up, all the students wanted, every question was directed at me after that. And then they requested that I come and give a talk at university. And the dean said to me, "Well, we don't do politics, we don't do religion, and we don't do spirituality." I thought, so
Yeah.
what have you got, robots? I said, "Okay, no problem." I said, "Who asked for me?" Said the students. I said, "They will get what I give them." Turned up, all the professors lined up at the back. It was really funny. And I said, "Great, I hear you don't do politics, you don't do religion, and you don't do spirituality." I said, "I'm not here to talk to your genes. So unless you're humans, please if you're not a human, please leave the room. But if you're a human being, stay." When I finished, I thought, I don't care if you don't have me back. Well, the next thing I know is at the end of the year, every single student said I changed their life because I spoke for about 2 hours. And so I've been back every year. Yeah.
Would you say you've got a feisty character? Would you say you're feisty? Because I think you are.
I'm very sweet, but I can be scary.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't like to be the poor son being brought on your daughter's arm, as potential husband material or whatever. I think there could be some.
Yeah. Don't go there. I think my children would tell you. My husband would tell you.
It's wonderful, and yeah, I have to say, having eaten with you, that side doesn't easily come across. But I think when people get your goat, there can be an opinion or two in there, can't there?
Opinion or two. You see, the thing is, here's the thing. I am on the, I don't know why, advisory board of the Iman Foundation. Iman Foundation was founded, it's a peace forum for heads of states, European, ex-European heads of states, ex-FBI, ex-CIA, and I'm in it. So I don't understand how that happened. It's got, Bertie Ahern, you name it, ex-prime ministers of Europe. And I'm thinking, what am I doing here? But the truth is, I'm very outspoken. And I remember we had a meeting in Pall Mall, and everybody was sitting at the table because after the reception, I went to the door. When I came back, there was one seat left at the end of the table. I thought, uh-oh. So I thought, where do I sit? And the chairman said, "Oh, Patti, you can take that seat." I thought, yep, okay. So I take the seat, and everyone is talking. It was about Saddam Hussein and, Gaddafi, and I'm listening. I'm thinking, oh, my goodness, we have had idiots lead us. And then I was just sitting there like this, looking really bored. And somebody said, "Patti, you have something to say." And I said, "I don't think you want to hear it." And they said, no, we do. I said, okay. I said, "I'm just sitting here wondering how any of you actually managed to rule a country." The table went silent. And then someone said, "Why do you have that opinion?" I said, "To be honest with you, I've heard everything you've said, and it seems to me you caused the problem and then you go and, do damage control in these countries." It was dear Bertie Ahern who went, "She's quite right." So everybody else started laughing.
It is very interesting, though, that your guest list for today was largely not showbiz, as you say. It was largely politicians and people and family friends, people you've known for many, many years. And I did wonder why there were so many politicians on your guest list, in that sense of the word. You know?
It's actually because I got to know. I mean, Sir John Major, for instance. It's a long story, Sir John, but I remember when he was fighting for his mandate. A lot of celebrities were invited. You see, loyalty is an important thing in life. A lot of celebrities were invited, and it looked like, I can't remember who the opposition was at the time. Was it Nick Kinnock? Neil Kinnock. It looked like he was going to win the night before. And do you know, nobody turned up for Sir John. And there were about 35 expected celebrities. Only Jim Davidson and myself. And Sir John never forgot it. You know, because loyalty.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to be, if you promise to do something, do it.
Yeah.
You know, don't promise somebody something and then let them down.
You're an amazing character, really. If you think about it, we're within the business, which can be very shallow, the business of television and the media and showbiz generally. But in actual fact, I said earlier, you're not at all showbizy at all, really. You are. I mean, people obviously in the audience here probably don't know quite how much you've done to give back to Africa as well with the building of the various hospitals. How many now?
Well, we have 5 basic healthcare hospitals and a school. The school is with Prince Harry's charity. We raised the money and, donated the money to Prince Harry's charity to build a school in Lesotho. But that's just part of life. You know, you can't, I mean, one thing about life is that whatever you accumulate, you can't take it with you. Okay, we have built, during Nigerian Biafra war, and then the subsequent change of governments, and we've had military rules after military overthrow, and you build up. In my family, we've been very wealthy, and then we lost everything, built up again and lost everything. The same thing in my husband and myself. I think he's actually amazed how I take it. Because I say to him, money is a piece of paper. Life is real. Okay, what is money? Can somebody explain? Do you know what I mean? It's a piece of paper. And in Africa, it used to be cowrie shell. Now, where's cowrie shell? Put it in our hair. We wear the money in our hair, okay? Or it's a necklace. You build, and it comes down. You build, but one thing you never lose are the friends that you build.
Yeah.
Or your family. I have learned that. But I knew that from when I was little anyway.
It's true. I mean, that's true in terms of Kaleidoscope, because everybody, as you know, who works within Kaleidoscope, it's all voluntary, what we do.
I know.
So, and it has been for, 40, 50 years. So
it's incredible. I mean, talk about me. This guy, the way he works, it's incredible. It's,
I try not to work, actually, if I can help it, but sometimes I have to, But
somebody asked me yesterday, because I was doing a show in Kent yesterday, and I just go with the flow of life. There is a flow to life, and you can fight it. When you fight it, you just bring yourself to where you will get to where you're going to be, but rather late sometimes. I just go with the flow. I just go.
Did your father forgive you?
Oh, yeah. Come on. 2 years past? Tell you what happened. My father came to London because he had disowned me. And also, he had to come and meet Stephen. I mean, come on. I brought an alien into the family. Okay. Not only is she with vagabonds and strolling minstrels, this child, black sheep. So he comes. My father had been in politics most of his life. He was President Nkrumah's chief advisor for a few years. Politician, and they traveled with diplomatic passport. When he retired, the poor man had forgotten that he's been traveling on diplomatic passport. Boards a plane, gets to England, no visa. Sorry, sir, can't let you in. And there were no mobile phones then. So Dad said, okay, please, can you get a message to my daughter? So the guy says, what's her name? And he says, Patti Boulaye. The guy, he hit a fan. The man said, you're Patti Boulaye's father? 2 years stamped in your passport. Unbelievable.
The benefits of fame. Benefits of fame.
Unbelievable. You see, but get this. On the way, though, I got in the car to drive. He says, Stephen, why is she driving? I went down to being a 5-year-old again. But I love it because that's what keeps you balanced, you know. Oh, my word. Okay, that's easy. Carmen Jones. I loved playing Carmen because, you know, when I went to see the show, I was expecting to see an opera. I wasn't expecting Carmen Jones to be quite so feisty, even though the girl on stage was not feisty. Opera singers, you know, tend to. But I just thought this character was fantastic. So, all I saw, Carmen, I thought, it's a Nigerian market woman. That's how I saw her. And I thought, I've got to play this woman. And I went trained with, the guy who trained Pavarotti. And he taught me to sing opera. 6 months, praying, please, please let the show stay open, please. And it did. And I went to audition for Simon Carlo, who was directing, and the Hammerstein brothers. And then I landed the part and played it for 4 years. It ruined any stage part for me. Brilliant. I just loved her. You know, she was so different from me. Scared the life out of my husband. Because he couldn't understand this woman on stage. I just loved her. It's like, somebody you want to be, but you're not. Oh, Carmen did that for me. Loved it. Well, okay, I have so many choices. I had to sing for Prince Hassan of Jordan. And that was a brilliant live show. I was involved in the 12, on the committee of 12, organizing Her Majesty's Golden Jubilee. That was epic. You know, I don't know how I got into that. But stage, there's been so many now, I don't even know. I think Carmen just tops everything. You know, I was organizing an event at the Royal Albert Hall for 3,000 gospel singers, the first time it had been done. It took me 12 months to organize this. And then I said, can I please have the Royal Box? And I said, Royal Box? For charity? Especially for Africa? HIV?
Yeah.
Good heavens, no. So I thought, okay. You see, the producer for the show, I managed to convince Major Sir Michael Parker, who was Her Majesty's equerry. And I said to him, would you please, because I'd done so many shows for him at the Royal Albert Hall. I said, please, I need to build these hospitals, and I need to raise money. Oh, Patti, he said. I said, how about I raise 3,000 gospel singers? You see, you have to understand, Sir Michael started the Edinburgh tattoo, the big,
Yes.
and the Elscourt military tattoo as well.
Yes.
So he does things at the Pentagon. He talks in thousands. So I said to him, how about 3,000 gospel singers? And then I thought, oh, Lord, what did I just say? I didn't even know there were 3,000 gospel singers in England. And his eyes lit up. So I had him. This man produced the show. I went to him, I said, do you think we could try for the Royal Box? He said, why not? Who have you got? I gave him the names of the dignitaries coming. He said, let's try. I said, okay, you know royal protocol. Can I draft a letter and then you can correct it for me? So I drafted a letter, gave it to my husband. He looked at it. Then we sent it to Major Sir Michael Parker. And he said, good. Sent it to, the next thing I know, 2 weeks later, I get a reply. Yes, and could they have 24 seats for royal staff? Whoa! I thought, what? I thought, God is working on this. And I tell you what, on the night, Sir Robin Jamvrin, who was organizing the Golden Jubilee, came backstage and said, can you produce this at the Queen's Golden Jubilee?
Yes.
And I said, sure, I'll go out there and, and announce and say, we need 5,000, not just 3,000. So I said, I'll just go and ask them to reproduce. So I said, I'll go and ask them to reproduce. I said, we're good at that. And at 5,000. So when I announced it on stage before the end of the show, everybody was up for it. And we had 5,000 2 months later on the mall going down. And I was on the committee. It was fantastic to be on. And, because I was organizing 5,000, Sir Michael said, we're meeting everyone who's sponsoring the Jubilee. Would you come and speak? I had literally a few hours' notice. And when I came to the, where they were, which was the mall, the Pall Mall, no, I don't know. Anyway, some building on the Pall Mall. And the piano building. And I said, oh, Sir Michael, what is this? Well, he said, this is everyone that makes Britain work going to be here. I said, oh, great. He said, now, what are you going to say for your bit? I said, what do you mean, say? He said, well, you're going to introduce your 5,000 and how you're going to. Oh, my goodness. I tell you, I got up. I was so nervous because there were 3 members of the government at the time who didn't want to celebrate. And they came to object about how much it's going to cost. And, Princess Margaret had just been lost. And anyway, so I got up and I said, God is so good to me. Seriously, I didn't prepare this, but this is what came out of my mouth. I said, Her Majesty, and we just had the collapse of the Twin Towers. And I said, Britain has always led the world in everything. I said, here is another opportunity. The world is crying because of the collapse of the Twin Towers. And we have a jubilee to celebrate. 50 years on the throne, it's a God-given right. And none of us in this room will be alive to see another, if ever. And I said, it would be a disgrace not to celebrate this. And I thought, oh, God, they're going to send you to the tower. When I sat down, honestly, I was shaking from head to toe because I thought, what did you just say, you idiot? And Sir Robin Jamvrin put his hand over my shoulder and said, you clever girl, you just said what we couldn't say.
Yeah.
The 3 members of government couldn't stand up to object after me. That's a very good question, and there's a story behind that. Oh boy, yes, my husband will tell you about this. Oh gosh, who was the head of the Conservative Party? William Hague wanted to introduce more ethnic minority into the Conservative Party. I thought, brilliant idea. Patti, would you front it? And the idiot that Patti is says yes. I'm prepared to do okay. So I meet all the shadow cabinet. And they said, great. And, this is what we're going to do. And I said, that's fine. I don't mind. I don't mind saying I vote Conservative Party. I'm not afraid to say that. Anyway, it turns out, it leaks out to the press. And the press, they have a conference.
Yeah.
50 press turn up. When you have 50, trouble. Seriously, you have 50 trouble, and I was experienced enough to know that. I said to Michael Ankrum, I said, this is bad news. He said, no, this is fantastic. I said, promise you, this is bad news. First question, Patti, are you running for mayor? I thought, that's random. I said, no. And I said, listen, the Conservative Party want to invite some ethnic minority to run for, forget that. Headline next day, Patti runs for mayor. Seriously. And so I called another meeting with the shadow cabinet. What are we going to do? What do? I don't want this. So they said, well, Patti, now the problem is if you don't do this, they're going to say we hounded you out because you're black. So I said, okay, so what do we do? They said, okay, well, here's what's going to happen. You have to run, pretend you're running. Just go along. We'll put you on the list. I thought, okay, that's fine, because they would know that she's not going to be a politician. 9 constituencies. 9 said yes. I'm thinking, are you guys crazy? Because everything I said was so non-political. I mean, I just said things like, you crazy to get rid of John Major. The only person I have met here, and I have met every single prime minister of this country since I arrived in 1973 till today. That's how God works. And I said, you're crazy, this best person, and you go and disgrace yourself, you know. One woman said to me, the Blue Rinse Brigade, she said, my dear, are you afraid of anything? I said, yeah, Jesus. I said, I'm afraid of the Lord Jesus. Everybody else is like me.
Patti Boulaye, thank you very much indeed for sharing your Sunday afternoon with me.
God bless you.
And these people here. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much
everyone, for coming. Thank you. Thank you.